In Chapter 9, we already discussed water, and this chapter also goes in depth in minerals. So this part of the lecture is going to be mainly on minerals. There are two types. We have major minerals and trace minerals. Major minerals are needed in larger amounts, usually about 100 milligrams a day or more, and trace minerals are less than 100 milligrams a day. We don't need as large a quantity of the trace minerals. So basic concept of minerals, they're elements in the rocks and soil, naturally found in water, and they are classified as micronutrients because they're required in small amounts. They can't be destroyed, but they can be lost from foods. So why are they necessary? They form the components of tissues. They're important in fluid balance, blood clotting, acid balance, and they're part of the enzymatic reactions in the body. So minerals have a lot of functions within the body, and this is a great um, graphic because it really talks about all the different parts of the body and the functions of the body and which minerals are important. For example, I'm not going to go through every one. You could look at that on your own, but you can see that with bone health, there are calcium, phosphorus, zinc, iron, copper, fluoride, magnesium. That's very important. So if you're deficient in calcium, you may have problems with osteoporosis later on in life. Fluid balance, sodium and potassium are very important. So look over this and you will see that there's a lot involved with regard to minerals and the functions of the body. Most of the minerals, are found in foods. Animal foods contain a lot of it, and sometimes when we process foods, it can reduce the mineral content. The bioavailability, sometimes it's more absorbed from animal foods than it is from plant foods. So iron, for example, if you're eating beef, there's a great absorbability of iron when we're eating beef products, specifically lean beef, so that it's a healthier variety. So if you look at MyPlate, you can see the different types of food groups such as dairy, grains, fruits, vegetables, protein, and which of the minerals are found in each of those food groups. Another great learning tool for you to look at and refer back to. So with fruits, we find lots of potassium and magnesium. Vegetables, we have calcium, we have sodium, we have potassium. Dairy is calcium, magnesium, sodium, etc. So again, keep using these as tools when you're planning your own menu to make sure that you're getting all of the essential minerals that are needed for health. We can get minerals from tap water. We can also get them from dietary supplements. But you need to be careful with minerals because some of them can be toxic when taken in excess. You only have to worry about that in supplements. When we eat food, we don't have to worry about toxicity of vitamins and minerals. So, that's one of the things you want to look at on the label of the supplement to make sure that you're not going above the RDA. Here in table 9.5, we can see, again, I'm not going to go through all of this, something for you to read on your own, but it's a summary of the major minerals, what they are, what the function is in the body, how much of it you should be taking a day, what are the sources that we can get it from, what are the if you're deficient, what are the signs and symptoms, and if you have a toxicity, meaning you have too much, what are the signs and symptoms? Another great tool, refer back to this table from time to time so you can make sure that you're getting the right amount from the right sources. Calcium is the most plentiful mineral in the human body. 99% is found in our bones and teeth. So if you want healthy bones and healthy teeth, you need to have the right amount of calcium. We don't absorb every bit of calcium, so we have to make sure that as we are aging, that absorption is, kept up to where it needs to be. And as we age, we, absorb less. So we need to have calcium taken in the presence of vitamin D to be able to help absorb. That's why milk is such a good source of calcium, because it is fortified with vitamin D and it helps with the absorption. It's very important for bone formation, for the components of your teeth, even for muscular contraction, clotting blood, cell metabolism, and it may help control blood pressure and your immunity. So calcium is an extremely important mineral. Of course, milk is the first thing we think of, but we can find it in the green leafy vegetables such as spinach and kale, and also in the cruciferous vegetables such as broccoli. MyPlate shows a variety of food groups and where you can find calcium. There are some fortified drinks, such as orange juice, that are fortified with calcium, or we can find it naturally in dairy. And again, another great source here for you to refer back to when you're planning your own plate. We want about 1,000 to 1,200 milligrams a day for adults. 2,000 to 2,500 is the upper limit, and you can become toxic if you go beyond. The reason calcium is so important is we want to prevent osteoporosis, which is low bone density, and the bones become porous and become brittle. And it affects a lot of people. Millions of people a year end up getting fractures based on osteoporosis, and making sure that you have calcium and you're doing weight-bearing exercises can affect, help you prevent osteoporosis. When you have too much protein, too much caffeine, and very low calcium intake, that can contribute to osteoporosis. Same as excessive alcohol, smoking cigarettes, if there's a family history. Women, once they go past menopause, are at greater risk, and if you're not physically active, and of course certain medications. So your risk factors are anything that is part of your family history. If you're a woman, if you're older, and if you are white or Asian, that raises your risk. Table 9.7 goes over all of them, so make sure that you pay attention to that because you don't want this disease. My mother has this. She suffered with it for the past 20 years, and she's in excruciating pain, and nothing helps to reverse it, even though there are drugs that can help slow it down. So begin early in life with a proper diet by following MyPlate. Make sure you're doing weight-bearing exercise because that helps to strengthen the bones. There are a lot of weight-bearing and non-weight-bearing activities in Table 9.8, so you want to look at that and make sure that you're doing some of these weight-bearing activities to help build stronger, more dense bones. Sodium is another mineral, very important, and it helps with the nerve impulses, and it's a very, very important when we talk about the cellular fluid. There's ions flowing in and out of cells, in intracellular and extracellular, and sodium and potassium are very important in that role. So we only need about 180 milligrams. They're saying that adequate intake is 1,500, but most of us get more than that a day. And if we go above 2,300 milligrams a day, that's considered to be a high, and most Americans are at 3,400. So we always get more sodium and less potassium than we need in the day. Some people are sodium sensitive, and that could contribute to high blood pressure or hypertension, and hypertension can lead to stroke, heart disease, and kidney failure. So when we talk about blood pressure, we want to have a reading of 120/70 is considered normal, 110/70, even 120/80, but anything other than those values, then you're starting to have either high or low blood pressure. So the systolic is the top number, which in this case would be 120, and diastolic is the lower number, or 70. So systolic measures the heart at work, and the diastolic measures the heart at rest. So it's very important to know your blood pressure so that you know if you're within the normal range, because you can't feel blood pressure. And so if you don't take it regularly and know what your blood pressure is at, it's very difficult to know if you're going to be at risk then for high blood pressure. There are risk factors for hypertension. Family history is a big one, getting older, being of African American descent, being obese, physically inactive, too much sodium, cigarette smoking, and excess alcohol, and specifically even if you have type 2 diabetes. So a lot of these things can be controlled. Obviously your family history, your genetics, your race and your age cannot, but the rest of them can be controlled as part of your lifestyle. And normal would be considered less than 120/80. Once we get to 120 to 139 as a systolic, or 80 to 89 as a diastolic, we start to have prehypertension. Here's where we can make lifestyle changes that would help us to prevent getting full-blown hypertension. And Table 9.12 has great steps. Follow recommendations with your diet, making sure that you're reducing salt, keeping a healthy weight, being physically active, moderate your alcohol, and avoid tobacco. Potassium is very, very important because it balances with sodium within the intracellular fluid, as sodium is in the extracellular fluid. we need to have the right balance of both potassium and sodium for necessary function within the cells. We don't want to have more than 4,700 milligrams a day, but most Americans consume way less than that. So this picture is a great graphic for the good sources of potassium in the fruits, vegetables, grains, etc. So again, look at the MyPlate for potassium and see if you're planning your diet so that you're getting enough of these food groups in that contain these sources of potassium. Magnesium is another mineral that is very important in over 300 enzymatic reactions in the body, and it helps regulate the muscle and nerve function, strengthens your bones and your immune system. So 310 to 420 milligrams a day is adequate. We usually don't find deficiency, and if we have toxicity, it's because you're taking too many antacids or dietary supplements. Chloride is, essential for proper fluid and acid-base balance as well. And table 915 gives a summary of these minerals that are very important, again, to understand the major function of these minerals and to understand how much you need a day and what the deficiency and toxicity looks like. So review table 915 and you will get an idea of what you should be doing in your diet with regard to these trace minerals. Iron is a very important mineral. It is a component of the hemoglobin, which is very important for energy generation and immune function. Good sources, again, here we go with the food groups, and you can see lots of sources of meats and vegetables and grains that contain iron. A lot of women are iron deficient, specifically when they're menstruating, so you want to pay attention to your iron intake. And about 18 milligrams a day for women and 8 for men is normal, according to the dietary guidelines. There are symptoms of iron deficiency anemia, pale skin, fatigue, irritability, brittle nails, headache. So if you have any of those signs, you want to have your blood drawn to see if you are anemic. Iron toxicity can occur, and sometimes there's a hereditary disorder that causes it, and sometimes it's just from taking too much in regard to supplementation, but you want to avoid the toxicity and overload. Zinc is very important for wound healing and immune function, so again, you want to make sure you're getting all the sources, and here in this particular graphic, we could see the food groups and the dietary, the sources of food sources of zinc. And you can see in this slide, we talk again about the RDA and the toxicity with regard to adequacy, upper limits. So pay attention to these. Most people do not have any problem with toxicity if they're not supplementing. Over supplementation can cause that. Iodide is very important for thyroid function, and that's why many people use salt, table salt, that is iodized to help prevent this deficiency. And usually, if you do have a toxicity, taking too much, you can have an enlarged thyroid gland. So when you have a deficiency of iodide, you can also get this goiter, and that is having to do with the thyroid. So the thyroid's very, very sensitive to iodide, and you have to, be careful, and that's why taking salt or using salt that is iodized helps to prevent issues with the thyroid. Fluoride, very important for bones and teeth. Most of it is found in water and in toothpaste. Selenium is also very necessary. It can reduce risks of certain cancers and very powerful antioxidant. Manganese is a trace mineral, and you find it in leafy vegetables, tea, nuts, whole grains. So again, this is just a brief summary of the section on minerals. Please review your chapter and make sure that you are really understanding what all of these minerals are and how to incorporate them in your diet.